Hey guys, I'm Emily from the Blue Mouse, and today I'm going to show you how to knit a garter tab. Now, a lot of shawl patterns start out with a garter tab, so it's a very useful technique to know. I use this technique in my new billowing shawl pattern, so I'm going to show you how to do it the same way that I do it in that pattern, but this technique applies to any garter tab. So just go ahead and refer to your pattern for how many stitches to cast on. Mine says to cast on 2 stitches. If you've never done one before and you don't understand the technique, you might want to grab a couple stitch markers, 1 stitch marker for every stitch that you cast on. So you'll want 1 stitch marker per stitch that you cast on. So I have 2 stitches that I've cast on, so I need 2 stitch markers. So I find it helpful to place a stitch marker in each one of these stitches, because you're going to have to come back and pick them up in the end. So if you know which is which, it's a lot easier. And you can use a piece of scrap yarn, whatever you have on hand. You could use bobby pins. So that's what that looks like. And then you're going to knit however many rows your pattern tells you. Mine says to knit 8 rows, so go ahead and do that. So I have knit my 8 rows, and I'm just going to turn my work. And then for row 9, or the next row after you've done however many rows your pattern tells you, I'm going to knit across, and then don't turn your work. Because what you're going to do is in each one of these garter ridges, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to pick up the edge stitch on each of those ridges. So 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Because I worked 8 rows, I have 4 ridges. If you worked 10 rows, you'd have 5 ridges. If you worked 6 rows, you'd have 3. So a garter ridge is worth 2 rows. So divide however many rows you did, and that's how many ridges you should have. But your pattern should also tell you how many stitches you need to pick up along the edge. So you're going to pick up and knit into each one of these. So I just go into this bump here on the edge, stick my needle into it, yarn over, and I'm going to pull that edge stitch over my yarn over. You're essentially just knitting it. And then I just kind of loosen it up so it's not so rigid. Make it a normal stitch. And then you move down to the next garter bump and you go into it. You're going into the edge stitch here. And then you yarn over and you're pulling this stitch, which is what you just picked up, over your yarn over and off. Essentially just knitting it. And you just keep doing this in every garter ridge to pick up as many stitches as your pattern tells you. So here are my 2 here from my last row, and then I picked up 4 along the side, and now we're going to pick up the 2 stitches that we placed markers in along the cast on edge. So this should be pretty easy. You can just kind of pull that stitch loose with the marker, stick your needle into it, and then you can remove the marker, and you're just going to do the same thing you did along the edge. So yarn over and pull that stitch over the yarn over and off, essentially knitting it. Loosen it up a little bit, then take the marker in your last stitch, loosen it up a little bit, and then place your needle into it. Then you can remove your marker, and then you're going to yarn over and pull that last stitch over your yarn over and off, essentially knitting it. And then you kind of just loosen it up to make it a normal tension. And there you have it. There is your garter tab. So your pattern will probably tell you to turn your work and start knitting across. And that is how you create a garter tab. You can see the technique here is how I used to start my billowing shawl. You can find that pattern on my Ravelry page under the Blue Mouse, and I'll link it below if you're interested. And thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe for more videos.